Welcome in to Palmetto Sports Daily on this fine Friday. Caroline here, joined by Julia, Teagan, and Kevin. And for those of you who will be tuning in with us in the late night crowd, this game will probably already be going on because it is the late tip, and I'm talking about the Clemson Tigers because they are still dancing in the ACC tournament. They get the #1 overall team in the country and the tournament's 1 seed in Duke at 9:30 in Charlotte. And it's just the third time in school history that the Tigers have won more than 2 games in the ACC tournament, and it's the first time since 2008. So their first 2 times before, 1962, 2008, and here they are, 2026, dancing on to the semifinals. You can see Carter Welling there on your screen. They got the win without him. That's one of Clemson's big men, their leading rebounder, their second leading scorer, who was confirmed to have a torn ACL that he suffered in the quarterfinal game, or the game before the quarterfinals. So definitely tough for them, but they prevailed with Nick Davidson scoring his first double-double of the season in Carter Welling's absence. There were so many things that we could pick out of this game, with those stats being one of them. But I think some of the biggest takeaway we could talk about here is that Clemson was up by 18 points in this game in the second half. So you're kind of thinking, all right, things are going pretty well. North Carolina chipped away, got it down to a 1-possession game at the very end. They were executing the foul in the free throw game and all that stuff about as well as I've seen anybody executing it, getting it down to a 1-point game in the final seconds. But Nick Davidson, like I just mentioned, not only did he have a double-double, but he was clutch in the final few seconds. He gets sent to the free throw line with 2 seconds left on the clock. Clemson leads 80-79. He did miss the first free throw, but he had a soft miss, intentional miss on the second one. Doesn't leave Carolina with enough time to get down the floor and get any kind of a shot up. Time runs out. Clemson wins it. They keep on dancing. The players in the locker room after the game all gave their own grades on his soft miss and what they thought about his execution of the intentional missed free throw.
On a high school grade level, I would give that an A+.
Nick approves in the distance.
Yes, A+. Look, we were talking about it before, so he was like, all right, he's going to miss it soft left, and he literally missed it soft left right to the person we wanted it to. Hey, and it worked out in our favor.
I grade the soft miss a B- only because he missed the first one. Only because he missed the first one. He got to make that first free throw, but he did what we needed him to do at the end of the game, and I'm just proud of my guys.
That got to be an A. That got to be an A for sure. It was a perfect miss, and for them to catch it right by the rim, and I just have to chuck it all the way down. So that was a good miss for him, and they was able to make a whole lot of shots towards the end, but he was able to sustain the pressure. And, that's what Coach talks about, and practices, locker room, and all that stuff, just being able to handle pressure and, not folding and being together, staying together.
I think I got to agree with Ace on that one. You got to hit the first free throw in that situation, put yourself up by at least 1 possession, but did not end up mattering, so the Tigers escape with a narrow 1-point win. And while we're talking about Ace Buckner, the Tigers have not had a ton of success historically in this tournament, as we mentioned, but they especially have not had much success against North Carolina in the tournament, now being 2-15 all-time against them. And the last time that they beat the Tar Heels in the tournament, there was another Buckner on the team, Greg Buckner, who's Ace's dad, also wearing number 21 out there. He had a long NBA career, now coaches in the NBA, but kind of a cool connection of the last time that they beat the Tar Heels in the tournament. There was a Buckner on the team. Now there's a Buckner on the team. I don't know. Maybe that's the secret recipe to beating the Tar Heels in the ACC tournament, but Ace was in the starting lineup, played the second most minutes he's played all season, had 11 points, one of 6 Tigers to have 11 points on the night. So without Carter Welling, they have a little bit of a different rotation. They step up and they get the job done up in Charlotte. Julia?
Yeah, I mean, what a special moment. And of course, they made everybody sweat to make sure that they actually could get that win near the end there. But I think just the most special thing was that video we had right when you started talking about this of Carter Welling being the one to, smack the Tiger paw on the bracket. And I mean, that just kind of goes to show what this team is all about. I mean, Brad Brownell has talked so much about how the strength of the team is the team, and I think you really saw that come through in this game where you lose one of your main guys, but they've balanced their scoring attack and they've balanced their chemistry so well throughout this season that they were able to get it done again, and then letting their guy, put the sticker on the bracket. I just think that's really cool, Teagan.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I mean, one thing good about this Clemson team this year is, yes, Carter Welling, of course, one of their top scorers, but they've had a lot of guys who have stepped up rather than that just one go-to guy. So that's really helpful, especially when you get to tournament play and experience something like this. I think, going into tonight against Duke, of course, there are concerns just at the beginning because of that 67-54 loss the last time they played. But outside of that, I mean, the Tigers have had, this will be the third very late night in a row of basketball. You just have to hope that, after the big battle last night, they have enough rest. Personally, I think that we should outlaw and ban all 9 o'clock and after tip-offs. I think they're absolutely horrendous. The only reason I get to watch these games is because I have to work until 11:30. Yeah, you guys get it. But yeah, I mean, you just hope that Clemson has enough energy going into tonight, Kevin.
Yeah, and having played 2 games in a row, and meanwhile Duke had an extra days off, that doesn't sit well for Clemson, and I pretty much expect Duke to go in and roll over the Tigers tonight. I think they're too much for Clemson to be able to handle. There is one other team from the state, though, that is still alive in their conference tournament, and that's South Carolina State. The Bulldogs go into the MEAC tournament last night and come up with an upset victory over Norfolk State, 88-82. Jaden Johnson, big night for him, 28 points and 5 rebounds. So the Bulldogs now move on to the semifinals of the MEAC tournament. They'll face the top seed Howard tonight. They are 14.5-point underdogs as they get ready for this one. But, like we've been saying all week, this is March. You never know what's going to happen. And just 2 wins away from going back to the NCAA tournament for SC State, which is incredible considering they had a 10-21 record this season. But most of those victories did come in MEAC play. So things could be lining up for the Bulldogs tonight as they get ready for a big one against that top seed Howard in the MEAC tournament. We're going to have more here on Palmetto Sports Daily coming up right after this.
Welcome back to Palmetto Sports Daily. It is Friday, so that means conference play starts this weekend for South Carolina baseball. They're hitting the road for Gainesville to take on number 23 Florida, and pretty tough opponent to start your conference slate. Florida always pretty good at baseball, to say the least, but the Gators have had an interesting start to their season. I mean, when you look at their record, they're 15-3 overall, but they lost a weekend series to High Point. They dropped 2 in a row to start the series and then only won Game 3 by 1 run in a 12-11 thriller, I would suppose. So that's pretty interesting. And then they go and take a win over Florida State this past Tuesday. So really interesting course of events recently for Florida, but for South Carolina, they come into this one coming off a win at the Citadel. They lost that game in Charleston earlier this week, and it was just kind of a bad course of events for the Gamecocks. And so looking at this series this weekend, I mean, my main point that I'm looking for is you got to rely on Will Craddock, but you can't only rely on Will Craddock because he has performed pretty well in a lot of these games, but he can't be the only one who's performing. So got to look and see what other guys can get the bats going, see who else can contribute. And then, of course, on the mound, you've got Josh Gunther going on Friday, Amp Phillips on Saturday, and then they are leaving Sunday open for now. So that game, of course, you'll be watching this about the same time that game starts, or even later. So Friday night at 6:30, Saturday at 6:30, and Sunday at 1 o'clock. So looking forward to a good weekend of opening SEC play for the Gamecocks. But Caroline, Clemson had an interesting start to ACC play.
Yes, Julia, they did. I think interesting is probably a good way to put it. That's maybe not how Eric Bakich would describe it. I think he would maybe have some other words to describe the Tigers' performance, which he did actually, saying that his team got kicked all over the field, and that is pretty much exactly what happened, for lack of a better descriptor. They got run-ruled 10-0 by Georgia Tech. I mean, now keep in mind that Georgia Tech, per D1 baseball, is the number 4 team in the country, but Clemson is the number 11 team in the country. So, you know, it's not like there's some kind of crazy gap going on between there. But yes, the Yellow Jackets get the win in 7 innings. They put up 4 runs in the 3rd inning, 5 runs in the 5th inning, and through 14 games at home, this is Clemson's first home loss of the season. And what's maybe adding another thing that's kind of puzzling about this here is that their ace, Aiden Canuck, was on the mound for this game. He threw 4 innings, but he had 6 earned runs on 9 hits. He did have 8 strikeouts, but he ended up getting the loss. Just not his best day out there. And like I said, Coach Bakich had some not so great things, but he also said that the Tigers are actually referencing their series with the Gamecocks, the Palmetto series, for how they're going to handle this opening ACC series for the rest of the weekend.
Kicked all over the field tonight, uncompetitive. They were dominant. Burris and Lackey had big nights, veteran guys in their lineup. They're a very dangerous lineup, and they just outplayed us, outcoached us, it was dominant on their end. So, we're looking at it same way we were in Columbia, where we're, in terms of this series, backs are against the wall and got to come out fighting tomorrow and have a much better execution in the ball game, because it's a very good club.
So it's a late one in Clemson at 8 p.m. tonight, Friday night, and then the final game of the series will be on Saturday. But I don't know. I've never seen Coach Bakich with a handlebar mustache. Is that what you call it?
I mean,
is that messing with the mojo?
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe that's the reason they've lost.
I didn't know what to do with that information as soon as he popped up on the screen there. So I'm going to blame the loss on the facial hair personally. That's where I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
If he likes it, good for him, but it's a choice, as I would say.
I thought he looked great.
So, yeah.
Kevin, as the only man in the room, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, how does one
I
get
thought he was
to
rocking
deciding on a handlebar mustache? Whoa, all right.
Sometimes it's just a matter of you lose control shaving, and that's all that's left, and you just go with it.
There's so many other ways. You could just go for a full-on mustache. Like, why did we have to? Okay, this is not. This is not.
Maybe he's shaving the beard, and you got leftovers there, and he decides it looks good.
Okay.
Well, anyways. Back to baseball. Let's talk about Kevin Schnall, who did not make a weird facial hair choice this week, as far as I know. But he did make some choices in terms of their pitching rotation. The Chanticleers getting ready to take on App State to kick off conference play in the Sun Belt. Starting rotation posted, we've got Luke Jones on Friday, Ross Norman on Saturday, and then Case Bosch on Sunday, a guy that we talked about last week, really kind of making a case for being the Sunday starter. He's a freshman, but he's smart on the mound. He's smart in the classroom, actually. He's got one of the top GPAs on the team. So it looks like they've got that a little bit more solidified in terms of just who they want on the mound, who they trust up there, because Coastal has really had to rely on a lot of their younger talent this season. Of course, they just got the big win over Wake Forest, so they're coming off of that win. They've got 10 wins on the year. App State coming off of their worst loss of the year. They lost to Western Carolina by about 10 runs, so this could be a real test for Coastal Carolina just in terms of how they're going to look in conference play. Of course, fans still expecting to see guys like Cam Flukie and Hayden Johnson come back in about a month or so is the guess of when they'll be able to come back from their injuries, but still some unknowns with Coastal as they head into conference play. We're going to take a quick break here on Palmetto Sports Daily. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Palmetto Sports Daily. We move over to women's college basketball, where the College of Charleston opening up their run in the CAA tournament this afternoon in their quarterfinal matchup against William & Mary, and the top-seeded Cougars really struggling in this opening round matchup. They actually trailed at the end of every quarter going into the fourth quarter. managed to pull up an 8-0 run to kick off the fourth quarter, and they escape with a 58-55 victory, so they are barely moving on to the semifinals. The Cougars improved to 25-5 on the season. Taryn Barbeau, the reigning now two-time Conference Player of the Year, she had 17 points, but the big one was Sophia Tugas. She hit 6 threes on the day, finished with 18 points, so came up really big for the College of Charleston. They now move on to the semifinals coming up tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Bronwyn Story is going to be up in Washington, D.C., and have much more on that. We'll have a complete wrap-up on this one coming up on Monday. Julia, Gamecock softball back in action this weekend with a big non-conference matchup.
Yes, they are off of SEC play after just one SEC weekend series last weekend against Texas. So this weekend, technically their bye week in SEC play, but they're filling it with a weekend series with Boston College. So they'll take on the Eagles this upcoming weekend, and they got a big win over Coastal on Wednesday night, 12-2. It was a win they really needed to snap a 4-game losing streak after 3 losses to Texas and a loss to Duke on Tuesday. So trying to get things back to where they want them as they get deeper into SEC play. But yes, they take on Boston College this weekend, and we'll have full coverage of that next week on the show. But not the only softball team in action. We got Coastal going on up there too.
Yeah, we do. Of course, like you said, Coastal Carolina coming off of that tough loss against number 23 South Carolina. Coastal only got 2 runs in that matchup. One of them came in the 5th inning right before they were run ruled against South Carolina. But the Shawns do kick off Sunbelt play this weekend. They'll be at home in Conway hosting App State. Hopefully that Coastal crowd can give them a little bit of mojo as they kick off SBC play. But I mean, this is a team with 12 wins on the year, 13 losses, so they're not exactly in a bad spot as they go into conference play, just maybe not as ideal as they were last year going into this part of the season. We've got to take a quick break, but we'll be right back on Palmetto Sports Daily.
Welcome back to Palmetto Sports Daily. We're going to end off this week on a fun note and what I assume is probably going to be a very heated discussion that already started off cam. So let's get to it on cam. We're going to throw up a tweet that has gone making the rounds around the nation. We'll hear the options from the tweet just went viral of which sports playoff grouping would you choose? So you have option A, the Masters, the MLB postseason, college football playoff, and the Stanley Cup playoffs. Or you have the NFL playoffs, March Madness, NBA playoffs, and the FIFA World Cup. So the, sort of touchy part of this is we were just talking about how, some of us don't really want everything in one group versus the other. I'm going to start with the purist here, apparently. Kevin, how do you feel about this?
The whole point of this exercise is you pick one, and that's the point. You might not want one, but do you want the other stuff bad enough to give up the others? What?
So what are
Following
you picking,
the instructions to a T, I see.
Yeah,
all right,
you start, Kevin. You give us yours.
Okay, well, I'm taking option B, just out of the sheer volume that you get more stuff. The Masters is great, but Masters is just 4 days. The World Cup, which I don't even really care about that much, you get more than a month worth of action. NBA playoffs goes 2 months. March Madness goes a full month. NFL playoffs. That's what it comes down to. Do you want to give up the Super Bowl? And I'm not giving up the Super Bowl. So I'll give up everything else on the left side just to be able to watch the Super Bowl.
All right.
Nobody cares, producer Nick.
I'm gonna go with option A, purely because toss that back up, Nick. I need to look at it. So the Masters obviously means something special to me because I got to play it. So I look forward to that every year. But college football playoff, I do love that. And then I'm a recent hockey fan, so Stanley Cup playoffs are going to be really fun. And who can go wrong with the MLB postseason? But the reason I don't like this argument is because I don't want option A and I don't want option B. I want the Masters, I want the college football playoff, I want the NFL playoffs, and I want March Madness. So that's where I stand, everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. I think I'm also going to have to go with option B because the NFL playoffs, yeah, I can't live without them. I get to watch the Bills in it pretty much every year. Hopefully that stands true this year. March Madness, I mean, I love one shining moment. I would be distraught if I didn't get to watch that compilation at the end of the season. As for the NBA playoffs, I mean, honestly, I could care less. Like, I'll watch a game or two, but that's not my vibe of what I want to watch postseason-wise. And then, sorry, producer Nick, can you throw that up one more time? What was the last option in my category that I chose? That would be the FIFA World Cup. Also something that, I'll watch it, but I mean, the NFL is the most important to me in this category. I wish that I could bring the college football playoff over to this option, but luckily for me, I don't think I'll really ever see Syracuse play in the postseason for that, so I guess I won't have to worry too much about missing my favorite team play in that, Caroline.
Yeah, picking one is hard. I think I'm also going to have to go with option B, like purely because March Madness is in there. Like, you cannot ask me to pick an option that does not include March Madness because I think March Madness is the best postseason out of anything on this list. Like, it is in its own category fully, in my humble opinion. That said, am I really watching the FIFA World Cup? Probably not in the same way that I would be locked into everything else. So it's like hard to disrespect, the MLB postseason. I mean, postseason baseball is like one of the best that there is. Doesn't top March Madness, but it's up there. So if I could pull the MLB over, maybe replace it with FIFA, or even the Masters, like last year's Masters where Rory McIlroy ended up winning, that was some of the most electric TV that I have ever watched. So I don't know. I think it's hard. I think I agree that we should have a combination of all of them, but I just cannot pick against March Madness, especially in March. Like, we're in the middle of it, like almost there. So I don't know.
I'm just going to let it be on the record that I didn't pick one.
Exercise. I thought you said option A.
You did.
No,
you
I'm
picked
going
A.
back on
Didn't
it.
you pick
I'm
A?
going
Yeah.
back on it. I pick option C.
You already picked it. You
my
can't go
own
back.
pick.
What are you talking about?
Take back
It's on the
seats. Sorry,
record.
guys. So
This
that's
is
going to
being
wrap things up
recorded.
for us this
No
week. We'll
take
see you
back
next
seats.
week.
No,
Have a great
not
weekend.
on this show. No.
End the show.
Too
End
bad.
You still have
Nick,
10
going
seconds,
break.
Julia. Let's mock you for trying to go
See
back
ya.
on this. This is ridiculous. No,
a
5
great
more
weekend.
seconds. What are you doing, Julia?
Happy
3,
Friday.
2,
Ridiculous.
1.
Ju-